Alright, this is Qualia Soup. Morality 1, good without gods. He did a fancy job, didn't he?
Some say that if we live in a godless universe, there's no basis for morality.
That is true. That I am one of those people that say that. Although that's kind of a vague...
That is, principles concerned with the distinction between right and wrong or good and bad behaviour or character. However, for many others, religion is the problem. Their rejection of religion, far from being motivated by a wish to escape moral accountability, as some claim, reflects a conviction that it's only through abandoning certain widespread religious ideas that progress towards a truly just and consistent morality is possible.
It's not.
This video series highlights some of the flaws in popular religious moral arguments and teachings, and offers a moral outlook that makes no use of God concepts, and is thus available to theists and atheists alike, refuting the profound misconception that gods are needed for morality.
It definitely won't pull that
So
off.
on what do we base morality? We know it's not power. The one with the gun might have the means to impose their wishes, but this tells us nothing about their principles. We know it's not majority preference.
Yes, you're
if the
right,
spectacle of human sacrifice is the preferred entertainment of the majority, this doesn't make human sacrifice right. We know it's not tradition. The fact that a practice may have endured for generations tells us nothing about its virtue. And although what's written in law may largely reflect what a society deems right or wrong, we know law doesn't determine morality.
Please tell us.
Laws can be unjust. When asking this question, it can be useful to consider how we go about assessing moral problems.
He's not going to give us one?
In Society 1, children are branded witches and blamed for famines and floods. They're ostracised by their parents, starved, tortured and killed. What can we say about this? Well, we know these disasters aren't due to magic, but natural processes. So before even having to consider the moral dimension, we can reject this behaviour outright, as resulting from a false view of how nature works.
No, you can't
do that. What makes it a moral matter?
You can't do that, Qualia, unless you can determine the moral superiority of being honest. If you can determine that truth is valuable and honesty is valuable, then yes, you can do that. But you can't decide what to do unless you know what is better than something else. Because anytime you make a choice, you are saying that it is better to make the choice than to not make the choice.
It's the kind of harm it involves.
So you're already
for things that cause no harm.
Right now. Everything else you're going to say is just going to assume truth is valuable.
For example, homosexuality is often misidentified as a moral issue, but gay relationships involve no intrinsic harm, any more than mixed ones. Indeed, when classing harmless things as immoral... Now you've made an even bigger assumption that moral issues only involve, or ones that involve intrinsic harm. So if it doesn't involve intrinsic harm, then it's not a moral issue. On what basis do you make that value judgment? Just out of nowhere. And then, why do you even care about intrinsic harm? Where do you get that from? You just assumed it. So, if, you were back there saying, well, we know it's not based on this, we know it's not based on that, and then you're just going to smuggle in these moral values that you value human life, and then you value truthfulness, and then think that, like, we didn't notice? What do you base that on? You didn't give us your basis. You're just going to say, well, I have these moral values. Yes, but where do you get them from? Results in persecution. We've reason to condemn the misclassification. Are the parents in Society 1 morally blameworthy if they're genuinely ignorant of their wrongdoing? We don't call well-fed cats that still kill mice, or young humans who crayon expensive wallpaper immoral, because we don't attribute them with the capacity to grasp reasons for not doing so.
Okay, he's right.
People who harm children as witches may have their capacity for reason undermined by false teaching, and so be less blameworthy than knowing abusers. In a very important sense, moral responsibility can be said to operate within the limits of education. This is why education... moral responsibility operates within the realm of education, and you can't be held morally responsible for things you're ignorant of. But that doesn't mean that you base your morality on knowledge of a situation, because there's still a question of, well, why would truthfulness or logic be, being logical or rational, why is that valuable? And so the argument from the theist side is, if there is no God, then we cannot determine that truthfulness itself is even a valuable thing to do. Even if we know what is truthful, we know what is logical, we can't determine that. So, your video is just falling apart. Your point is just falling apart. I don't, because you just smuggled in that you just value truth. When the question is, why value truth? On what do you base that value?
Especially in science, is crucial to moral progress. Among other things, it helps eliminate our vulnerability.
I can't believe you said that. Moral progress would assume that there's some sort of absolute standard of morality by which to measure your changes as beneficial instead of negative. In other words, how do you say that you're making moral progress instead of just you're changing to a different morality? You have to have some sort of absolute standard to measure that, and then say that, well, this is better. So, I mean, education is crucial to moral progress. How do you know if you're having moral progress? I mean, I understand what he's saying is that a person can't be held morally responsible when they don't know that something is wrong, but again, that's a different kind of knowledge. I mean, that's a knowledge about what's right and what's wrong. That's knowledge of morality. But that's not basing morality on knowledge. That's knowledge of morality.
Ability to superstition-based abuse. Knowing better leaves us no excuse for not doing better. Once the justification for a harmful practice is shown as false, there's literally no reason for it to continue.
Unless falsehood is good. And the question the moral question is it better to be false or honest? That's the question. You just want to assume that falsehood is bad. Why? We're not asking a question about how someone can know what's right and what's wrong. What we're asking is, how can there be such thing as good and evil if there is no being that gives existence its purpose? If I'm just here and you're just here and we just exist, then what is there really to say that this is the right way to exist, being honest all the time versus being false? I mean, it's not that complicated.
Scenario 1 is also about dehumanization. When the witchfinder convinces a parent her child is evil, even demonic, this is a potent way of eroding empathy, an adaptive pro-social trait notably lacking in psychopaths, which keeps us sensitive to others.